Good evening, welcome to Prime Edition. I am Cynthia Nyamai.
Good evening and thank you very much indeed for joining us. We're coming to you live from our national headquarters here in Broadcasting House, Nairobi.
With news just coming in that in Nyamira, their speaker has just been impeached. We do have the details for you, and we will be telling you the threat on our economy because of just money laundering and much more. And we also have an interview for you. O'Brien, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all know that refugee is a big problem here in Kenya. And of course, it has always costed the taxpayers, billions of shillings to host them here. And so the question is, what is the cost of maintaining and hosting refugees here in Kenya? We're going to have that conversation with the man in charge of refugees here in Kenya. That's a good conversation that I would advise you not to miss. So you better stay right here.
And also in sports, the IOC president is in the country. That and much more. But first, let's have the highlights. Rescue yourselves. Rigathi Gachagua wants the three-judge bench reconstituted in his fight for justice in the ongoing efforts to replace him as Kenya's second in command. Banking on Kenya's geothermal potential, President Ruto says innovation and technology are keys to delivering more geothermal wells for development. And which way out of the grey list? Financial experts warn of economic fallout unless Kenya effectively deals with money laundering. Well, Brian Muraru is our sign language interpreter. Remember, we would love to hear from you. You can send us your comments on our social media pages. That is KBC Channel 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and also Instagram. And if you'd like to send me a message, you can do that on the 3 channels on Cynthia Nyamai, including TikTok. Now, the 3-judge bench hearing of the Rigathi Gachagua case will pronounce itself tomorrow afternoon on whether it will recuse itself from the case. Gachagua's lawyers accused the bench of being a conveyor belt of the state and that it was formed as part of the conspiracy to set aside the orders issued by 3 single judges from different courts. Justice Mrima is said to be a long-term friend of Senate Speaker Amason Kingi, who is a part of the case. Justice Ogola is also claiming to be a beneficiary of his spousal state appointment by the presidency, which is a party to the case. The respondents, however, told the bench to dismiss the allegations as flimsy and not to reaccuse itself. Well, the County Assembly of Nyamira has impeached Speaker Enoch Okero in a sitting marked with drama and presided over by the Deputy Speaker, Thaddeus Nyambaro. Okero's removal follows weeks of political tension in the Assembly, leading to his suspension.
Take the opportunity to declare the office of the Speaker.
At the County Assembly of Nyamira, it was another day of drama as members convened to discuss the conduct of embattled Speaker Enoch Okero.
Honourable members, resulting the business of today, there is no business in the afternoon until the office of the Speaker is filled. Thank you.
Soon, proceedings turned into an impeachment trial, with 23 out of 34 MCAs voting for Okero's removal from office. In the session presided over by Deputy Speaker Thaddeus Nyambaro, who the MCAs installed as the interim speaker after suspending the speaker, Okero was accused of, among others, refusing to table crucial financial and procurement documents required by various House committees for oversight purposes. Okero, who was absent from the proceedings, is also accused of sabotaging MCA's efforts to impeach Governor Amos Nyaribo. The political drama in the Nyamira County Assembly has seen a nominated MCA de-whipped from one of the House committees. For Prime Edition, I'm Christine Matunda.
Ministry of Education has affirmed that there is adequate infrastructure to handle learners who will transit from grade 8 to grade 9 come January next year. Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Dr. Bello Kipsang, said the government has completed 68% of the classrooms, with legislators committing to handle the rest. The PS also noted that 20,000 intern teachers will be recruited in January to ease the current shortage.
With barely 2 months to the beginning of the next school calendar in January 2025, when learners in grade 8 will be transitioning to grade 9, Ministry of Education has come out to allay fears of any hitches pertaining infrastructure. Principal Secretary Basic Education Dr. Bello Kipsang, who appeared before the National Assembly Committee on Implementation, assuring that by January a total of 17,000 classrooms will be completed to accommodate learners.
And we are already at 68, almost 68% of doing these classrooms. We are doing 11,000 classrooms as government. I know we have partnered with yourselves that we committed 3.4 billion shillings, and members of parliament and members of the National Assembly committed to match the amounts. So we are going to do another 6,000 classrooms through your support. And by January, we envisage to have done 17,000 classrooms of what is needed for our children to transition from grade 8 to grade 9.
MPs also sought to know measures taken to address teacher shortage and clarity on capitation for junior secondary of 15,044 shillings per learner.
Because we have children who are being sent home to buy basic things like desks. So a child who is not able to afford a desk will stay home.
4,000 of the 15,000 is supposed to be used to improve facilities in a school. Both physical facilities, which is schools where requiring sanitation facility, 4,000 of it is set aside. And that's why when we are doing these classrooms now, that 4,000 shillings will be used to get a desk, because we shall require desks in grade 9. We shall not require parents to buy a desk.
I'm seeing a situation in my constituency and in other parts of northern Kenya where resources are not available, both human teaching, both classrooms and everything. How prepared are these peoples?
In most of our arid and semi-arid areas, as we improve on school feeding program, it is a pull factor, the numbers will increase. There will be need for us to ensure that most of our schools host junior schools.
The Ministry of Education noted an exponential rise in enrollment from 2.5 million in 2017 to 4.2 million in 2024 in senior schools, but without a corresponding infrastructural expansion, hence the need to leverage on the current school infrastructure improvement project. Kamche Menza for Prime Edition.
Kenya Wildlife Service is on the spot for failing to implement 2 presidential directives to open a livestock corridor in Malka Halaku Conservancy in Tana River County. Tourism and Wildlife Cabinet Secretary Rebecca Miano and KWS Director General Erastus Kanga were on Thursday at pains to explain to the National Assembly's Tourism Committee why herders in Garsen were unable to access Galana River despite an existing presidential directive establishing a livestock corridor from Kenya to Galana River. The committee has now given the ministry and KWS 3 weeks to resolve the matter.
Now, from the year 2009 to date, His Excellency the Deputy President requested that, and he basically directed that this corridor need to be provided. What does it take, Madam Waziri, and we know you are seated, you and the PS who are lawyers, Kanga is a scientist, you may not know. What does it take to decazette in the portion of land from KWS to any other use.
The good thing that the land we are set to acquire is a public land, so we don't foresee issues of resettlement or valuation for people to be moved from one place to the other. It's within our own public land. It should be an easy conversation. We undertake to start it with the Ministry and KWS. We heard about the directive from President William Ruto when he visited. Of course, it was all over, and we are in the process, of course, that among many other corridors.
I humbly request that with the clarity that I now have as to the depth and the dimensions these issues are taking, that I go back with my team so that when I come back with the responses, I will then have rehashed them and maybe given the full perspective of what I am hearing today.
Head of Public Service and Chief of Staff Felix Koskei has challenged the Africa Schools of Government to take advantage of the revolutionary global technologies and come up with innovative policies that will offer exemplary and efficient public service to the citizenry. At the opening of the first Africa Schools of Government conference hosted by the Kenya School of Government in Mombasa County, Koskei underscored the need to develop a global curricula that will make it easier for government officials to work efficient from any public office in the continent.
We need to really get out of the box and try to take advantage of innovation to make sure that the services that we provide in public sector is equal to corporate sector. There's no difference. Private sector, public sector should be operating almost the same. We have to do comparative studies, share, mainstream them until in not distant future we will have procedures, processes, regulations, and policies that are almost similar. That if I walked to Guinea-Bissau today, I will not be a stranger in how government operates. Same case if I go down to Malawi, I would expect to fit in. It is schools of government that if they discover themselves and realize that they were created to ensure that the effectiveness and efficiency of government is always relooked at and always fine-tuned through research, always fine-tuned through perhaps comparative studies across, and then one that is fit for purpose is the one that we can embrace even across Africa.
Senators are now considering summoning the Health Cabinet Secretary Deborah Baraza to explain what the government is doing to improve conditions at Mama Lucy Hospital following reports of tough experiences women are facing, particularly in maternity care. Senators regretted that the situation at Mama Lucy Hospital continues to worsen, with the women in the maternity ward enduring difficult conditions. They want the ministry to explain what the government is doing to streamline healthcare services and address challenges such as overcrowding and staff shortages. In addition, the Senate is also seeking clarity on the status of NHIF payments to hospitals and the status of the resumption of the Linda Mama program, which provides free maternal healthcare as a lasting solution to Kenya's maternal healthcare crisis.
On the hospital for essential maternity and general healthcare services. It also highlights broader issues of inadequate healthcare infrastructure and staffing at the facility, which falls under the responsibility of the county government of Nairobi.
And Mr. Speaker, when you look at the images coming from Mama Lucy and the images that are coming from other hospitals when it comes to maternal health care, Mr. Speaker, it is very sad. And Mr. Speaker, the reason I asked for 1 more minute is because as much as this is an issue of funds and county allocation, Mr. Speaker, as a national government, Kenya Kwanza, we actually have an intention to address the women of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Until today, you know, we don't even have a minister of gender, Mr. Speaker. This is how much we think about women, Mr. Speaker. It is like those are not issues that should be, you know, discussed, Mr. Speaker.
In my own sub-county, I had a case of a mother giving birth in the night in darkness because there was no electricity, the generator had no DSL, and they have no solar, Honorable Speaker. So you can imagine the distress our women go through as they deliver, Honorable Speaker.
Currently, Honorable Speaker, you can go to a hospital. I even said these things about 3 weeks ago. You can go to a hospital. You'll be given list of what you're going to bring. List of bed sheets, list of pillows, slippers, mugs, basins, so many things, Honorable Speaker. I don't know where we're heading. On the
The National Police Service Commission is conducting promotion interviews for 183 chief inspectors of police who are eyeing the rank of Assistant Superintendent of Police. The interviews that began on Tuesday will continue until next Tuesday, the 29th of October, at the Commission's office in CBK Pension Towers. They are a culmination of higher training costs and senior training course aimed at preparing officers for leadership roles within the Kenya Police Service Administration, Police Service, and the Directorate of Criminal Investigations.
The National Police Service Commission Chair Eliud Kinuthia says the current interviews seek to assess the officers on governance issues, financial management, communication skills, ethics, leadership and management, and general police work.
And based on this assessment, officers who may not meet the requisite standard and may not pass the interview by bad luck, then they will be given another chance to be able to perhaps repeat or correct what is not found right.
All 183 officers have attended promotion courses following a selection criteria guided by the Commission, which includes merit and service record.
We also look at the academic qualification. We look at their discipline record. We also look at their previous performance. And in the 6-month course, we look at how they perform in the various examinations.
Kinuthia added that the Commission also plans to publish in the Kenya Gazette all officers promoted to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Police and assign higher responsibilities within or above the sub-county command level.
The officers will also be subject to different disciplinary process, which is conducted by a special committee in the Commission, so that we can be able to work together with the commanders to ensure that the disciplinary level and control, as well as proper management of human resource, is done.
Since 2019, the Commission has promoted 515 Chief Inspectors of Police. Tilio Marco for Prime Edition.
Workers in the informal economies in Kenya will benefit from a social protection initiative funded by the International Labour Organization and the government of China. The 2-year project, with an allocation of $1 million of around 130 million shillings, is expected to leverage digital transformation through South-to-South cooperation and ensure more persons in the informal economies are onboarded in social protection.
16 million Kenyans are in the informal sector, according to the Ministry of Labour. Labour Cabinet Secretary Dr. Alfred Mitua acknowledged that the current social protection framework does not adequately cater to the needs of workers in the informal sector.
Unfortunately, they are not registered in the formal system of government. So that means that they are not recognized, and that means that they cannot be found. And that means that when they come to look for support, there is no established way they can be supported.
Dr. Mutua is calling on those in the informal economies to register themselves with community-based organizations to benefit from the newly launched social protection project.
For government to be able to support you, for you to be able to access credit, for you to be able to access support, you need to register yourself in a CBO or register a company, because that is the only way we can be able to support you.
Principal Secretary in the State Department of Social Protection, Joseph Mutari, adding that the new initiative is part of Kenya's strategy to expand social protection coverage.
My State Department is finalizing data collection for the enhanced single registry in the remaining 12 counties, completing the exercise across all the 47 counties in Kenya. This comprehensive database will play a crucial role in guiding interventions with accuracy, timeliness, and effectiveness.
The project enables us to play a critical role in raising awareness about the right to social protection, improving digitalization in social protection to enhance delivery mechanism and extend coverage.
It is all about fighting poverty, getting people from that very bad lifestyle to improving their quality of life. And I want to appreciate on behalf of the Kenyan government the support that you've given to ILO and ILO to us.
China's Vice Minister of Human Resources and Social Security Li Zhong noted the importance of collaboration to enhance people-centered development. The project, supported by International Labour Organization and the Government of China, is also being undertaken in Lao PDR. Isufar reporting for Prime Edition.
Correctional services and much more coming up shortly after the break.
We asked the children, how many of you brushed this morning? And this little boy, his hand didn't go up. And I said, well, why didn't you brush this morning? He said, my brother was using the toothbrush. If I'd waited for him, I would have been late for school. I'm sorry, I get a bit emotional when it comes to that. To be able to change a child's life, to be able to bring back that confidence about their smile, for me, is phenomenal.
Rahisisha uwezo wako wa ushindi kwa kukuwa memba wa Loto Moto, na ni rahisi. Dial *570#, chagua option 1. Ukiwa memba ni rahisi kufika kwenye jukwaa hili ili kujaribu mchezo wetu wa Loto Moto Show. Na pia kama memba unajipa nafasi rahisi ya kuingia kwenye promotion zetu zinazokupa nafasi ya kujishindia chapaa na zawadi kibao kama TV, friji, pikipiki, mashamba na pia magari. Kuwa memba ni *570# option 1. Tushinde kama members.
Are you a holder of unclaimed financial assets? All holders are notified to report and surrender unclaimed financial assets to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, on or before November 1st, 2024. It is now easier to report and surrender. Visit www.ufaa.go.ke and get started to beat the November 1st deadline. It's your turn. Report and surrender today. Please note that failure to report and surrender qualifying unclaimed financial assets attract penalties and sanctions in line with Section 33 of the UFA Act 2011. UFAA. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Welcome back. Now, the Correctional Service has been urged to adapt the national guidelines on mental health and wellness and address mental health challenges among prison officers, probation officers, and inmates. Speaking during the Correctional Service Week closing ceremony, Cabinet Secretary for Defense Soipan Tuya said there is a need to mobilize resources and support mental health benefits for both the staff and offenders.
On 22nd October, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration
Department for Correctional Services kicked off their annual Correctional Service Week under the theme Mental Health and Wellness for Effective Service Delivery.
Ningependa serikali ingilie wakati ambapo officers wanatoka training ndio wapate hii knowledge about finance, wapate kuplan budget yao na kuinvest vizuri ndio wasije wakaingia kwa hii mambo na financial constraints yenye italeta stress ama depression.
Followed by Edwin Mutombi Mugira.
And on Thursday, the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Soipantuya, graced the closing ceremony, urging the State Department to adopt the National Guideline on Mental Health and address mental challenges among the officers and inmates.
These guidelines are more than a document and should be more than just a document. They should and must inform our actions. Our next steps should then be how to translate these guidelines into practical, every single day realities.
We not only maintain order in our penal institutions, but we also act as caregivers, mentors, and at times the first line of defense for individuals experiencing mental health crisis. In fulfilling this critical role, we must recognize the impact this challenging work has on our mental health.
She added that prisons and probation centers should be equipped with more structures to address mental health challenges among inmates with special needs.
A special focus has rightly been placed on offenders with special needs. Those with disabilities, cognitive challenges, and unique mental health conditions do require tailored interventions that go beyond the standard care. Our prison and probation structures must be equipped to meet their needs with dignity and effectiveness.
Principal Secretary, State Department for Correctional Services, Dr. Salome Biako, said the adoption of innovative mental health programs and trauma-informed care approaches will enhance inmate rehabilitation and reintegration effort.
Correctional officers and staff with strong mental health are better equipped to handle the pressures of their personal and professional roles, enhancing their decision-making, emotional intelligence, and performance resilience. This in turn cultivates a safer, more supportive environment for both staff and offenders.
Kasichana Masha, Premedition.
The High Court in Meru has sentenced a murder convict to 30 years imprisonment after he was found guilty of stabbing an activist to death. Details in our county's roundup.
Judge Edward Murithi said the prosecution, through the testimonies of 11 witnesses, had proven beyond any reasonable doubt that Patrick Nawit intentionally murdered Isiolo-based human rights activist Elizabeth Ekaru. Nawit is being held at the Meru GK prison.
The court considers that a sentence of imprisonment for a period of 30 years, which ensures the accused is in custody for deterrence, reformation, and community protection objectives for a period of not less than 20 years.
And a modern market that was under construction in Iten town in Elgeyo Marakwet County has collapsed. The residents have blamed the contractor of poor workmanship, claiming inappropriate materials were used in the construction.
Huyu contractor ambaye alikuja kujenga hii ghorofa akaweka vitu ambaye haihitajiki, haifai kuwa inajengwa kwa hiyo ghorofa. Tunasikia mawaya ilitumika, si ile inafaa. Kokota kwanza imeweka, hakuna kokota hapo. Haya, kitu ya kwanza pillars. Pillars ya kusukuma, ya kuunda chuma, ya kusimamisha ghorofa. Lazima pillars ijengwe, pillars ambayo inasimamisha kitu.
Elsewhere in Homa Bay County, several families in Rodi Kopany Trading Center were forced to spend the night in the cold after strong winds blew off the roofs of their rented houses.
Pepo imetokea hapa, imetoa hii nini, kichwa hii ya nyumba yetu yote, alafu imeharibu vitu yenye yalikuwa hapa ndani yote. Tulikuwa tunajenga masanduku, majiko, sisi ni watu wa jua kali. Sasa ndio shida tumepata hapa.
And more than 300,000 legal documents, including identity cards, driving licenses, and birth certificates, are uncollected at Huduma centers across the country. Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi is urging Kenyans who have not collected their documents to do so as soon as possible.
Please, Kenyans, I'm sure you need those documents for particular purposes. Go and pick them. Go and collect them. Because government exists to serve its citizens.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development has identified 450 feedlots in a bid to boost livestock production in the country. The 5,000-acre feedlots will be located in all the 23 arid and semi-arid lands counties.
Goes in and puts livestock production facilities like fodder production, water management, disease management. The net effect of this is you encourage the neighborhood communities to bring their animals there for better finishing and fattening.
Finally, in Narok County, a section of Maralemek Land Owners Association members have called on all the stakeholders to bury their differences and work together for positive returns from the conservancy land that is adjacent to the Masai Mara National Reserve.
Tukuje kwa mesa hawa waleta mashamba zao, tulete yetu. Kama hawa ndio wako na share kubwa, wachukue share kubwa haki yao. Kama hawa ndio wako na share kidogo, wachukue share kidogo yao. Na kama hawa ndio wako na share kubwa, limit land owners, hawa wale wengine wachukue share yao. Sasa hiyo ndio mzozo vile imefanyika, na tunaomba amani, kwa sababu amani tu ndipo inaweza kuresolve kila jambo.
Martini Maslin for Prime Edition.
Welcome back. It's now time for business. Now, Kenya is betting on public-private partnerships to develop major power plants. President William Ruto says despite Kenya's huge geothermal potential, estimated at 10,000 megawatts, only 950 megawatts have been exploited. President Ruto spoke during the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the 35 megawatts or power 22 geothermal plant in Menengai, Nakuru County.
Kenya's efforts to tap its expansive geothermal power resources have been hampered by lack of resources due to the expensive nature of the investments needed. In the last 10 years, almost 500 billion shillings have been invested in tapping geothermal power. However, only 950 megawatts have been generated so far.
As I have said, we have just scratched. We have an additional 9,000 megawatts that is untapped. We are working with GDC to make sure that we unlock this potential.
President William Ruto says the government will work with the private sector to develop key infrastructural projects as a means to help reduce Kenya's tax burden and reliance on debt for development. Speaking during the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of 35 megawatts or power 22 geothermal plant in Menengai, Nakuru County, President Ruto has called on the Geothermal Development Company to tap innovation and technology to deliver more geothermal wells for development.
Geothermal power and geothermal projects are complex. The GDC must remain capable of facilitating swift progress with respect to Menengai and other projects by utilizing local labor as well as technical skills and expertise to promote self-reliance and national pride.
We will not only install more geothermal power plants, but also use the geothermal electricity to generate green hydrogen and to produce ammonia from the green hydrogen.
The Ore Power 22 facility is the third plant in the Menengai 105 megawatts geothermal complex. Once completed, the power plant is expected to generate affordable power at 8 shillings per kilowatt, reducing the country's reliance on fossil fuels and allowing Kenyans to enjoy cheaper green power. Ndutamo Kami for Prime Edition.
Kenya should develop a proper framework to deal with money laundering, which threatens the country's financial system. Speaking during the inaugural Kenya Anti-Financial Crime Summit, financial players are warning that failure to address these issues promptly could result in further economic fallout. The Financial Action Task Force placed Kenya under the grey list due to high cases of money laundering and weak enforcement of anti-money laundering regulations.
In February this year, the Financial Action Task Force shook the local financial market when it placed Kenya on the list of countries abating money laundering and financial improprieties. The Paris-based task force warned that the lack of a proper framework on money laundering and poor enforcement measures had made Kenya a money laundering haven. It is estimated that Kenya loses over 40 billion shillings annually to illicit financial activities.
The implications are such that you put a risk premium on the country. So FDI inflows to Kenya will be less because people see you as not adhering to good financial management principles.
It is actually wrong to drag an individual through a criminal justice process when you are fully aware that this quality of evidence will never lead to a conviction. Not only a conviction, but also a recovery and restitution of the value.
This mismatch between risks identified and actions taken have left the country vulnerable, with stakeholders now pushing for stronger enforcement mechanisms and political will to uphold the rule of law in investigations and prosecution of money laundering offences.
The action points from which you'd pick evidence capable of successfully prosecuting a criminal offense, the systems now should be changed often. At least every 5 years, we should be able to have reviewed.
For a long time worked as silos, we have worked separately, but now we are saying we can no longer do that, it's not working. Let's come together as the private sector, as the public sector. Let's come together, think together, and more importantly, work together.
The private sector has also been urged to strengthen compliance systems to ensure transparency. Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition.
A gap between evidence-based data and policies is hampering interventions in the food production value chain and slowing food security efforts. Environment Administration Secretary John Elungata is challenging public research firms as well as universities to explore a public-private partnership to enhance research on climate adaptation.
Kenya has in recent years been facing the brunt of climate change, highlighted by frequent and severe drought and flooding that have negatively impacted livelihoods.
Improved water management techniques and agroforestry by supporting smallholder farmers to adapt to climate variability, we aim to build a more resilient agricultural sector.
We conduct evaluations of social protection programs, such as cash transfers, such as women's savings group programs, to really learn about how such social protection programs can actually help households cope with the challenges they experience caused by floods and droughts.
Researchers are calling for adoption of agroecological innovations which combine science with traditional, practical and local knowledge of producers in a drive towards sustainable production systems.
We are aware that one of the contributors of climate change is use of agricultural inputs that impact negatively. So we have to work at reducing that, and so biologically trying to restore our agricultural system is one of the thrusts that my team works on.
As a country, we need to know that God has blessed us with a great diversity of plants and animals, and we need to take care of them when it comes to using them for adapting to climate change.
Researchers want evidence-based findings to inform formulation of policies and improve the effectiveness of interventions.
Looking at solutions that then the government and all of us as stakeholders can be able to incorporate in our programs, in our policies, so that then we can make an attempt to, address the impacts which require a multidisciplinary approach, a multi-sectoral approach to addressing the issues of climate change.
Kenyatta University has sealed a 5-year public-private partnership with American-based research firm AIR that will focus on research on climate resilience and adaptation. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Traditional cooking fuels and technologies are among the major contributors to household air pollution in Kenya, with severe health consequences for the population. Now, an initiative to promote climate-friendly cooking in the country is introducing innovative cooking stoves that use less charcoal and firewood to improve air quality. Here's more in today's episode of Tech One.
At a local in Nakuru City, Nakuru County, Josephine Abongo is busy attending to customers at her cooking shop. Abongo produces and sells clay-molded energy-saving stoves that she says are a great improvement to the open-fire cooking technology used in most rural homes in Kenya. The project is being implemented by Practical Action, a development-focused non-governmental organization.
I think it's becoming a talk that we are moving the discussion towards ensuring that our local people transit from the traditional cooking solutions to the new cooking solutions that save their lives.
Data from the Ministry of Health estimates that 21,500 premature deaths occur each year as a result of indoor air pollution triggered by cooking.
The use of firewood, as we know, when it burns, that smoke is direct. It's worse than even when you smoke because there is a filter. This is the primary use of the smoke, which has a lot of effect in the lungs.
Unlike traditional stoves, the improved visors are designed so the flame is aimed directly at the cooking pot to avoid wasting heat. They also have just one opening for charcoal and firewood instead of three, and they are constructed with a thick liner made from a special type of clay for heat conservation. All these factors make the stoves up to 40% more efficient, reducing consumption of firewood and charcoal. Practical Action says around 200,000 improved cook stoves have been sold by more than 300 trained entrepreneurs like Abongo. Further, proponents of the technology say the innovation has cut costs for users.
We used to have a full ton, a lorry of firewood a term. But the way I've implemented it, I've saved almost 80% of that, which is a plus for us.
Kenya aims to achieve 100% access to clean cooking by 2028, in line with UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, we have very good policies, but in terms of funding, then it needs to match the good policies that we have in there.
Alan Oko, Tech One.
The government has abolished the minimum tea buying price, allowing market forces to dictate prices. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Dr. Andrew Karanja says the reserve price is to blame for an increase in unsold tea volumes at the Mombasa tea auction, as Kenyan tea lost its competitive edge on pricing concerns.
About 40% of tea produced last year was unsold, meaning about 120 million kilos of tea was lying at the Mombasa tea auction at the start of this year. This is mainly attributed to the minimum tea buying price that was set at $2.43, which saw produce from neighboring countries get a price edge over Kenyan tea.
Due to the interventions we made, suspension of the minimum prices, which we did, the volume of tea which was cut in Mombasa has significantly gone down.
Dr. Karanja says the reserve tea buying price has been abolished, reverting to the market forces dictating tea pricing at the Mombasa tea auction.
But I can assure the Kenyans, the numbers have come tremendously down from what we had about 70 million to less than 10 million. So we have made good progress and we are going to maintain that policy. And that is why we are saying one of the issues which was there, which was making the tea big stack, is about quality. So
Kenya has also initiated talks with a number of Gulf nations to start direct tea shipments as opposed to the current indirect sales through Dubai.
We are looking forward in a new year to go to trade missions. There are countries we have identified, I don't want to mention them by name, it's sometimes diplomatically, but mainly in the Arab world and also in Mediterranean region.
There are some markets now because the crop is we are talking of 650 million kilos being produced by Kenya. And that one takes now everybody to do the marketing of the tea.
Dr. Karanja says the government plans to audit Kenya Tea Development Agency's debts.
Rahisisha uwezo wako wa ushindi kwa kukuwa memba wa Loto Moto, na ni rahisi. Dial *570#, chagua option 1. Ukiwa memba ni rahisi kufika kwenye jukwaa hili ili kujaribu mchezo wetu wa Loto Moto Show. Na pia kama memba unajipa nafasi rahisi ya kuingia kwenye promotion zetu zinazokupa nafasi ya kujishindia chapaa na zawadi kibao kama TV, friji, pikipiki, mashamba na pia magari. Kuwa memba ni *570# option 1. Tushinde kama members.
Mapato ya jasho lako, faida ya nguvu zako, na juhudi za kila siku kuboresha maisha yako. KBC ndio ngao ya jasho lako. KBC linzi wa akiba yako. Relax, akiba yako iko salama.
KDIC, safer, stronger together.
Welcome back, and now to some good news where plans are underway to create at least 1,000 local digital platforms that will offer a platform for the youth and SMEs to access global markets. ICT and the Digital Economy Principal Secretary, Engineer John Tanue, is calling for more collaborations in adapting digital solutions and innovations to address socio-economic challenges faced in the country.
About 5.5 billion people are connected to the internet, and 30% of the global economy is driven by digital platforms. Although Africa is lagging in developing its own digital platforms, Kenya plans to transform the digital ecosystem through the creation of 1,000 digital platforms with the aim to address the country's sustainable social and economic progress.
Very talented young people. We are already very good adopters of technology. We want to see more growth of digital platforms so that as the world moves towards the digital space, our country secures a share in the digital space through locally developed digital platforms.
Engineer Tanui highlighted partnerships with global tech firms such as Google, Meta and TikTok as essential in driving innovation and ensuring that youth and SMEs access the global market.
It's also very important for our country because it gives us access to the global market. And the quickest one we've been discussing recently, including Meta and Google, is how to use it for tourism. It's one area that can quickly increase the number of tourists that will visit our country.
Ndegwa says challenges such as mobile termination rates and resource limitations are hindering the telco's sustainability effort. Wairi Mujenga for Prime Edition.
Imagine discussing critical board matters while enjoying beautiful lake scenarios, while the cool Lake Victoria breeze keeps you refreshed. Well, this kind of meeting is fast gaining traction along Lake Victoria, where water bus meetings are becoming popular. Kisumu County is betting on these innovations to drive visitor numbers and increase revenue from tourism and the conference business. Wycliffe Oketch has more details for you.
Kisumu City has for the first time witnessed a very unique form of business, a corporate conference on a cruising water bus.
For partnership building, for networking, for knowledge exchange.
For 3 hours, the Mennonite Economic Development Associates, also known as the MEDA Project, held a fun-filled workshop inside the water bus that plies Lake Victoria. Attendees participating in the workshop were thrilled by the ingenuity of this concept.
I've never experienced this in Kenya, so this is fantastic, it's wonderful, and besides that I came to work. So I'm actually working as I am experiencing this one fantastic opportunity.
I think I want to come here again, just with my own people, so that we can have a taste. They can also have a taste.
I'm so excited with this eco-tourism. I've really enjoyed being on the lake for this long, and it's a very, very great experience. In fact, the way Amin said, I'll bring my farmers here. We'll do the celebration, we'll enjoy the fruits of our lake.
I feel good, I feel happy, because it is one thing to have an idea and it is another thing to actualize that idea. So today my dream has come to pass.
Kisumu County Executive Committee member for Tourism Farida Salim says the county will work with private players to position the lakeside city as a major hub for meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions.
MICE conferencing, we want also to handle it hand in hand with lake tourism conferencing. Remember, we have our convention center, the second one from KICC here in Kisumu. Once it is going to be complete, it is also another package.
The shift from hotel meetings to lake conferencing is slowly but steadily taking shape around the Western Kenya circuit, with other counties like Busia and Homa Bay expected to take cue.
And this is coming out of one of the resolutions that we had during the tourism week, where each county has been tasked to develop a new tourism product. And this is one of them for us in the Western circuit.
Farida says she mooted the idea to the organizers of the workshop, who were quick to buy it thanks to the thrilling experience of holding a meeting on the continent's largest freshwater lake.
So we wanted to have a taste and a feel of what this means for the participants in our programs, but more importantly also give our stakeholders an experience.
And I think we will do this over and over again as long as we have resources, because at the end I think we have achieved our objective, which was to discuss issues of matters around the poultry value chain.
Lake Victoria harbors immense potential for the growth of the blue economy, but resource inadequacy remains the biggest impediment for the Kisumu County administration.
The blue economy is way underutilized. There is opportunity for growth, there is opportunity for us to invest. We just haven't utilized these opportunities that we have.
Here is an investment opportunity. I ask people to come. Not only international investors, even the local investors.
This is the first meeting of its kind in this part of the country. However, the private sector is being challenged to partner with both levels of government in the form of investment in ensuring this tourism product is explored even further. For Channel 1 from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Oketch.
The Amboseli National Park, renowned for its breathtaking views of Mount Kilimanjaro and the iconic African wildlife, holds an overlooked secret in enchanting swamps. These wetlands, often overshadowed by the park's more famous attractions, are a vibrant tapestry of life, beauty and ecological significance. Tonight on Magical Scenes, we highlight the hidden gems of Amboseli.
As the sun rises over Amboseli, golden rays dance upon the surface of the swamps, illuminating a world teeming with life. The air is filled with the gentle sounds of nature, birds chirping, frogs croaking, and the soft rustle of reeds swaying in the breeze. It is here in this tranquil setting that one can truly appreciate the delicate balance of the ecosystem.
Park. Within the park, we have over 56 mammals, which can be seen from time to time. And we also have all except one when we talk about the big five. We have the lions, we have the leopards, we have the cheetahs, we have the buffaloes, all can be seen in the park at any given time. And so apart from that, Amboseli is also known as the home of African elephants because of the number of elephants which are residing within the park. And so it is only within Amboseli where you are able to see a large herds of elephants at any one given time.
Moreover, the swamps serve as a crucial buffer against the climate change, acting as a natural carbon sinks. Preserving these wetlands goes a long way in protecting the incredible biodiversity, as well as contributing to the fight against global warming. Mchuma Odim, magical scenes in Kajiado.
Well, many thanks for joining us. Time now to focus on our interview of the day. And I just told you before, when we were starting this bulletin, about the issue of refugees. I mean, I just want to take you back to the year 2016, when former President Uhuru Kenyatta announced to the world that Kenya was in the process of closing all 8 refugee camps in the country because of issues around security and, of course, the issues around budget. We are now joined by the Commissioner for Refugees Affairs. This is John Burugo. He's going to help us understand where are we in terms of the closure of these refugees camps and, of course, the cost involved when it comes to running and managing the refugee camps that we have in the country. Thank you very much indeed, Burugo, for joining us. Thank you. Help us understand. I mean, you are telling me that we have about 804,000 refugee camps. Refugees in Kenya.
Yes.
Where are they and what are they doing?
Thank you to host me. The refugees in Kenya have been with us since independence. Initially, they were about 20,000.
20,000?
Yes, at independence. And that time, there were about 13 small camps. Utange, Njomvu, Thika, Garissa. Mm-hmm. A small number in Kakuma. And those ones had free movement. Because by then, mostly were Ugandans who had come in. Because then the East African community, as you are aware. But in 1990s, there was a huge influx because of the collapse of Somalia. Subsequently, therefore, the numbers shot beyond 200,000. Mm-hmm. And the government decided to amalgamate, to merge the camps. And the camps became Kakuma and Dadaab as we know them today. And that is when now all the 13 were collapsed to 2. And over the years, the government has been hosting refugees. We do practice what we call open door policy. We receive, document, protect, and also give access to government services. Mm-hmm. So Kenya has hosted refugees since independence. Only that the numbers keep increasing.
They keep growing.
And keep growing, yes. And we have now 804,594 registered refugees, mainly about 400,000 in Dadaab and the rest in Kakuma. We have about 106,000 spread across our urban areas, mainly Nairobi about 60%, Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru, and even Kiambu, Roiro, Kitengela, Isinya. So they are across our urban areas.
And when you talk about 804,000, refugees, I mean, that is like the entire population of Turkana County, Marsabit, and then you can also throw in Wajir there. Who is in charge of taking, who caters for the cost of keeping these refugees in Kenya?
Kenya is a member of global group of nations and is a signatory to the UN Convention of 1951 that provides for the protection, the hosting, and granting of rights to the refugees. And what has happened is that over time, government has been working with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. We have a country office, and it works in collaboration with government and many other partners within the refugee space. So it is not only the Kenyan government. However, the government of Kenya carries a big chunk in terms of the responsibility of security, welcoming, documenting, protecting, as well as even giving access to services. We have been giving them access to education, health, water, sanitation, social protection, and we are now again moving. The humanitarian support globally has been dwindling because of the competing interests on humanitarian support. And therefore, the government of Kenya, just like other refugee hosting countries, is looking innovatively as to how we can sustainably be able to support the refugees, especially transform them or transit them from humanitarian dependence to development-oriented, where we create self-reliance and support them to empowerment. We have started socio-economic inclusion structures that would support them be able to access services, be able to also employ themselves or get employed. And we provide Permit M, which is the category for refugees to be able to work in Kenya. That is granted in collaboration with the Directorate of Immigration in the country. So I would say that the bigger chunk of the cost is on the government. And that is why from time to time, government has to assess what is the cost of the impact. Mainly, we have invested in security. We have also invested in the communities of Garissa as well as Turkana. They have donated that land, which the government designated by gazetting the two camps.
I want you to help us understand this. I mean, when you look at the growth of refugees in Kenya, about 20 years ago, there were less than 500,000 refugees in Kenya. Today, you're talking about 800,000. And you were saying that the huge chunk or the budget of ensuring that these refugees are hosted in Kenya, they are comfortable, they access health services, education as well, it lies with the government of Kenya. And this puts pressure on our budgetary plans because, let's face it, I mean, the country has been going through budgetary pressures or physical pressures. And so, for how long, as a country, can we continue to say, just come in, we'll take care of you? And at the same time, you're also complaining about dwindling fiscal resources.
First and foremost, there are those conventions that Kenya, as a country, a member of group of nations, has assented to. And in the UN Convention of 1951 and its protocols of 1969, it obligates countries to receive refugees. A refugee is that person who is displaced because of conflict, genocide, ethnic cleansing, or other persecutions, and expresses fear on their life and rights, and therefore they run away and they seek refuge in a neighboring country. Our 804,000 refugees come from East and Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region. And it is because of a protracted conflict and instability within the region that continues to push them this side into the country. I know that it's a huge burden. Of course, the country, first and foremost, is obligated to its citizenry to be able to provide in terms of budgetary, financial, and socio-economic items that would spur the productivity in the economy. But again, we must balance our national interest against the international obligation, which we are signatory to.
And that's what I was coming to next, because, I mean, yes, the fact that the truth of the matter is that Kenya is a signatory to a number of refugee agreements, if I was to call them so. Part of it is being a member of the United Nations, UNHCRC.
Yes.
But there comes a time when you have to say, hey, wait a minute. Though we are members of these agreement is hurting our national interest. And so we can't take in more refugees because the numbers will keep on growing. And so are we looking at a situation whereby we're likely to get to that point?
Kenya is fifth in Africa in hosting refugees. I think Uganda is number one within the region. It has over 1.5.
Yeah.
And Kenya is also 13th globally. It is not that because we have an open door policy, we shall continue welcoming and registering and documenting and therefore undergoing the costs for hosting refugees. It is the national government interests, the national interests of the country, the obligations that it has subjected itself to by assenting to UN Convention. It is for the country, the top leadership, to be able to decide now we cannot take any more because we are experiencing more pressure in terms of resources, in terms of security, or they pose a threat of some kind. If we get to that situation, then the country will have to take a decision. In 2016, when the country felt there was a threat to its national interest, the then administration decided, through a tripartite understanding, UNHCR, Somalia, and Kenya, to repatriate and close the camps. And E4, 2, and Kabios were closed. And a chunk of the refugees was taken back, was repatriated. But since then, the numbers have tripled. So we look at also
the numbers of incoming.
Yes, of the influx has tripled. What we need to be able to look at is the sustainability, because migration is in the character of the human being. The displacements, however, are forced displacements. What does the country do? Which measures can it do? First and foremost, we have taken measures to integrate them, to make them productive, so that then the cost of maintaining them is mitigated.
Very good. I want you to hold your thoughts there. I'll be coming back to you so that you can help us understand what are some of the mitigation measures that you have put in place as a government. I mean, we are discussing the cost of running and hosting refugees in Kenya. We are talking about almost 805,000 refugees in Kenya. The number has more than tripled in the last 30 years. And so if nothing is done, then we are likely to see another tripling in the next 20, 30 years. You're watching this conversation live from Broadcasting House. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay right here.
Rahisisha uwezo wako wa ushindi kwa kukuwa memba wa Loto Moto, na ni rahisi. Dial *570#, chagua option 1. Ukiwa memba ni rahisi kufika kwenye jukwaa hili ili kujaribu mchezo wetu wa Loto Moto Show. Na pia kama memba unajipa nafasi rahisi ya kuingia kwenye promotion zetu zinazokupa nafasi ya kujishindia chapaa na zawadi kibao kama TV, friji, pikipiki, mashamba na pia magari. Kuwa memba ni *570# option 1. tushinde kama members.
Welcome back. You're watching the Prime Edition. We're having a conversation around refugees, and we're in the company of Commissioner for Refugees Affairs. This is John Furugo. He's joining us so that he can help us understand what are we doing to manage the cost of hosting and, of course, maintaining refugees in the country. Before we got to the mitigation measures, I was asking you, what is the cost of hosting one refugee per day in Kenya?
I'll put it to a minimum of $3.
$3
a day.
That's about 450 shillings.
Yes. And that means that in a year you would have about 1,000. And when now that is basically to provide for the basics. But when you go to provision of education, of health, of water, sanitation, then the cost, of course, increases. But more importantly is that we need to recognize the investment the government has done in the area of security, because the security is core to hosting refugees.
And what you're trying to say, or what you're saying, is that the investment in security, in education, in health, it's actually much more bigger than the 162,000 shillings that we spend every year maintaining and hosting one refugee.
Yes, and as I mentioned before, we have partners who work with us. Mm-hmm. For example, in the area of health, we have a program that we are implementing together with partners that is supported by World Bank called Kenya Primary Early Learning Program, KPIL. And it is a $60 million 5-year grant, 6-year grant that is looking at provision of 117,000 scholarships for refugees and host community. That is under the window for host and refugees. And again, still on that program is the expansion of schools, classrooms, the accreditation of TSC trained teachers. Again, also the aspect of hot meals and also retention of girls. The bottom line is to improve unequal education outcomes within the refugee hosting areas. So we have many, about 6 programs that are running, supported by partners. So government is being supported in terms of provision of services. But at the same time, I point out that there is what we are now, as a government, running from encampment to integrated settlements.
Integrated.
There are 2 municipalities, Kakuma and Dadaab. And on top of that, we also are moving, shifting our policy from encampment to integrated settlements through Shirika Plan. Shirika Plan is a blueprint of socio-economic inclusion and integration of the refugees into the Kenyan government service delivery systems.
We'll be discussing the Refugees Act of 2021. You know, and the privileges that it gives to refugees. But I still, before we depart from that point, I want to hear from you. I mean, you are talking about $3, for hosting one refugee in Kenya, and you're looking at 804,000 refugees in Kenya, and so it cost about 162,000 shillings, to maintain one refugee in Kenya. Out of 162,000, how much is met by Kenyan taxpayers?
I would say much of it is met through health, where we provide free education, free health with the partners, education again, access to water. So those are the 3 areas I would say the Kenyan taxpayer is meeting. But the 4th one, which takes a bigger chunk, security.
Security? Security,
yes.
Is also by the Kenyan taxpayers?
Of course.
So are you talking about maybe 100, maybe 60-50 ratio, or how would you divide it?
I would say 50%.
50%?
50%. But when you also look at the socio-economic impacts of hosting the numbers, the aspects of culture, the aspects of pressure on resources, the aspect of environmental destruction, so all that, it would go even to 70%.
70%?
Yes.
When we talk about the issue of refugees and migration, it's a crisis in the West.
True.
Europe is battling with a serious migration crisis. And according to UNHRC, the number of refugees has more than doubled actually, from 60 million in 2014 to around 120,000 120 million this year. Yes. That's a huge number. True. And from their projections, this number will continue to rise. And the question is, are we looking at a situation whereby we are likely to see, no, enough? We can't handle
for now, I would say the migration or refugee agenda in the country has not reached to be an electoral issue. It is already an electoral issue in terms of the West. But in Africa, we are yet to get there. However, I would say we are already experiencing the shocks and the impact, because we are looking at the socio-economic support to them and how sustainable is that against the citizenry. And that is where now the government is striking. Well, there is a principle that the Global Compact for Refugees came up with that is called shared responsibility, the shared burden, where the country welcomes and hosts refugees. And the international community steps in to support that country through programs that are service-oriented to the refugees. But that sometimes is not coming through. And therefore, the government is left with the bigger burden. Let me put it this way, if you allow, that there are 3 durable solutions. A durable solution is one that will be able to give sustainability. And in this case, there is voluntary repatriation, where a refugee may feel conditions allowing at his or her country of origin to go back voluntarily, and they give themselves to that. Last year, we repatriated voluntarily 154 Burundians. But half of that number has come back with what we call returnees. Why? They went back and found their land is sold, and another dynamics which militated against.
Was not conducive.
Yes, that were not conducive and militated against their reintegration into their country of origin.
And they came back.
So that is one durable solution, which is not working.
Number 2.
Number 2 is the third country resettlement. That is where we get quotas to go to America, to go to Austria, to go to Canada and other countries. The quotas are very small, meaning that we have about 80,000 only who have benefited since 2013.
Since 2013.
Yes. So, and repatriation back to their country of origin, 62,000. Leaving over 700,000 as a burden stroke opportunity for the country. It depends on how the country manages the refugees, the localization aspect, which is a third durable solution.
Before I let you go, in the interest of time, I want to hear from you. The Refugee Act of 2021, the regulations, they give some privileges to refugees, from allowing them to get work permits, to having bank accounts, to owning a SIM card. Those are some of the privileges provided for in the Refugees Act. Is it a panacea to the challenges that we face of refugees, the Act?
Indeed, because if we are able to provide and be able to ensure that the KYC, know your customer, is recognized through central bank, the ID of the refugee is recognized. That will allow the organizations, financial institutions, to be able to allow refugees to open their account, get soft loans, run their businesses, KRA to issue PIN cards, and the telcos to also issue the SIM cards. So the most important for now, even as we transition through Shirika Plan, is the financial inclusion, ensuring that all refugees are able to access the financial ecosystem of the country by KYC. We must be able to include the refugee ID in the anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism regulations that were last done in 2023.
2023.
Yes.
John Furugo, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We wish you all the best in managing and, of course, handling of refugees in Kenya as the Commissioner for Refugee Affairs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Furugo is the Commissioner for Refugees Affairs, joining us tonight to help us understand the cost of hosting, managing, and, of course, retaining refugees in Kenya. And if I've had the numbers, they are quite staggering. We have discussed that among other plethora of issues. Sports news is coming up next with Daniel Wahome. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you for your time.
A very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Prime Edition Sport. Now, the National Under-17 Women's Soccer Team, the Junior Starlets, registered their first victory in their debut at the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup when they defeated Mexico by 2-1 in their last Group C match at the Estadio Felix Sanchez in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. Lorna Faith stood out to receive the Player of the Match award. The team is expected to jet back into the country on Saturday.
Valerie Nekesa and Lorna Faith scored for Junior Starlets in the 15th and 36th minute respectively to seal the victory.
For a ball to be played in her direction, she keeps offering to run in behind, but it's the players going the other way who are doing the running in behind, and it's 2-0 to Kenya. Beautifully struck.
Alexo Sato pulled one back for the Mexicans in the dying minutes of the game. Lorna Faith received the Player of the Match award after an excellent display throughout the match. Head coach Mildred Cheche said her wish is for her girls to stick together and get more international friendly matches to give them more exposure.
A win kwetu inamaanisha at least we are the first team kuattend World Cup na pia kushinda mechi kwenye Kenya hata kama hatujaweza kufuzu kwa next round. It's a big thing for our country, for the girls to win mechi at a World Cup.
Hizo game za kwanza hatukuwa tuna kickball, tulikuwa na uoga sana, but hii game ya leo at least tumejikaza, tumejituma na tumekickball.
Tumekuwa psyched up game ya leo, tukasema hata kama tulipigwa hizo game mbili, tutaangalia kichwa chini, give our best to make our country pride.
Kenya finished the tournament third overall in Group C on 3 points, while Mexico were last in the pool without a point. Two-time champions North Korea, who thrashed England 4-0, finished top of the group on 9 points. North Korea and England advanced to the quarterfinals from Group C.
Chaelson in behind the England defence.
And the national men's soccer team, the Harambee Stars, is scheduled to leave tomorrow for Juba for their African Nations Championships, that is CHAN. First leg qualifier this Sunday against South Sudan, where they're determined to come out victorious to cap the glorious month for Kenyan teams. The squad, which is expected to fulfill that task, was unveiled by coach Engin Firat, who nevertheless dropped goalkeeper Patrick Matasi and picked Ibrahim Wanzala of Kakamega Homeboys, Brian Odhiambo of Bandari, and Farouk Shikal of KCB to do the honours. Those who made the cut include, among others, strikers Matthew Tegisi of Shabana, Victor Mune of AFC Leopards, midfielders Vincent Owino of Nairobi City Stars, Kenneth Mugun of Kenya Police, Matthias Isogo of Mara Sugar, Crispin Erambo of Tusker, and Ulinzi Stars midfielder Boniface Mushiri. The defenders are Sylvester Owino of Gor Mahia, Bernardo Ndiek of Posta Rangers, Brian Eshihand of Kakamega Homeboys, and Kenya Police's Musa Mohammed. Kenya has automatically qualified for the 2025 CHAN tournament as co-hosts with Uganda and Tanzania, but will have to go through the qualifying phase where they play South Sudan in a two-legged affair to determine who will proceed to the next round. The return leg will be played on the 3rd of November in Uganda. Now, the International Olympic Committee has increased its annual solidarity budgetary allocation to the National Olympic Committee of Kenya by 10% in order to strengthen the athletes' programs. This was announced today by the IOC President Thomas Bach, who arrived in the country today for a 3-day official visit, accompanied by the Association of Olympic Committees of Africa President Mustafa Beraf. Bak met with Federation officials in Nairobi, where he reiterated the IOC support to NOC and challenged them to work towards increasing Kenya's medal tally at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympic Games. The IOC president is expected to meet President William Ruto before visiting athletes in Eldoret. He will wind up his tour this Saturday at the Kakuma refugee camp in Turkana. The IOC president's visit is the first since his election in 2013.
Mr. President, your timely visit signifies the cordial, long-standing and cherished relationships between our National Olympic Committee of Kenya and the IOC.
We are, in the Olympic movement, we are a human-centered movement. We are a humanitarian movement, and this is why we always have to have in mind the human being, because this is the base for everything we do.
Kenya boxing team, the Heat squad captain Boniface Mogunde, defeated Morocco's Abidine Amrouche by a split points decision in their light middleweight semi-final bout to advance to the finals of the Africa Boxing Championships in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Elizabeth Diego and Clinton Macharia are the other two Kenyan boxers in the finals.
Morocco's Abidine Amrouche survived a second-round knockout as Boniface Mogunde won the bout to qualify for the finals. Mogunde will now meet Burundi's Nesta Dawarugira in an all-East African region final. It will be the second time Mogunde will be facing the Burundi boxer, whom he defeated in the Zone 3 tournament in Kinshasa 2 years ago.
So sahi tunafocus kwa finals, bado naenda kupata mtu kutoka Burundi na imani bado hii finals naichukua kwa sababu yeye ndo Mwenyezi Mungu amenipatia nguvu, amenipatia kila kitu ambayo nimefanya, zoezi yote nimefanya, jasho yote yenye nimetoa kupitia kwa makocha wangu, kupitia kwa mimi mwenyewe, na imani itaenda to West.
Mogunde, Elizabeth Diego and Clinton Macharia are the three Kenyan boxers in the finals out of the 8 who qualified for the semi-finals.
The fight was tough. I was fighting against a hometown girl, which all favors were to her, but I used my experience to beat her. So she was so powerful in her punches, so I was like trying to keep her at range, scoring with more punches and moving around.
The performance by the Kenyan pugilists is an improvement from last year's Africa Championships, where all the 7 boxers who had qualified for the semi-finals lost in Yaoundé.
Now, defending champions Kenya Ports Authority are in Zanzibar ahead of the Women's Basketball League Africa Zone 5 qualifiers set to tip off this Sunday. The Dockers are eyeing a chance to reach the Africa Women's Basketball League final scheduled for December in Dakar, Senegal. Head coach Anthony Ojuku is optimistic his charges are well prepared and ready to retain the Zone 5 title. The team has 5 foreign players, namely Veronica Kita from Nigeria, Alima Dumbia from Cote d'Ivoire, Kiyobe Chantal from Rwanda, Aminata Samaseku from Mali, and Gracie Rebu from Congo. KPM made history last year as the first Kenyan team to reach the final of the Africa Women's Basketball League in Alexandria, Egypt. Equity Hawks will also be representing Kenya in Zanzibar.
Kwa jumla nimepata recruitment wachezaji 5 wapya pamoja na Nkem kutoka Nigeria, Keita kutoka Benin, Minata kutoka Mali, Grace kutoka Congo na Alima kutoka Ivory Coast. Kwa kikosi changu nashukuru kiko kabambe na natumainia kwa uwezo wa Mwenyezi Mungu tutakwenda tupate matokeo mema.
And that's the sport for tonight. So what's in the diary tomorrow? We'll be looking at the weekend ahead, plus also keeping up with the IOC President Thomas Bach's visit. The first time an IOC President is visiting the country in just about 20 years. Have a good evening. My name is Daniel Wahome. Back to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Daniel Wahome. From me and the rest of the team, we would like to wish you a very good night.
Bye-bye to FOMO, the fear of missing out, by downloading the KBC Online app that gives you access to everything you love. Get the latest news, sports, music, entertainment news, live TV, live radio, and so much more at the palm of your hand. To get the app, simply search KBC Mobile Digital App in your Google Play or App Store and download the app. Catch what you want, anytime, anywhere. Stay connected. Stay ahead with KBC Mobile Digital App.